Genesis 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years, that Pharaoh dreamed, and, behold, he stood by the river. And, behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored cows and fat, and they fed in a meadow. And, behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and skinny, and stood by the other cows on the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and skinny cows did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat cows. So Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamed the second time, and, behold, 7 ears of corn came up on one stalk, rank and good. And, behold, 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and, behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof, and Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then spoke the chief butler to Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was, me he restored to my office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came into Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it, and I have heard say of you, that you can understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me, God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood on the bank of the river. And, behold, there came up out of the river 7 cows, fat and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And, behold, 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and skinny, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored cows did eat up the first 7 fat cows. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and, behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And, behold, 7 ears, withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and I told this to the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years, the dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken to Pharaoh, what God is about to do he shows to Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled to Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Forasmuch as God has showed you all this, there is none so discreet and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and according to your word shall all my people be ruled, only in the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in clothing of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without you shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph named Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath the daughter of Potiphar a priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And to Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath the daughter of Potiphar a priest of On bore to him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, has made me forget all my toil, and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenty, that was in the land of Egypt, were ended. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph, what he said to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses, and sold to the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. Genesis 42. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, Why do you look one on another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt, get you down thither, and buy for us from there, that we may live, and not die. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brothers, for he said, Lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came, and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brothers, and he knew them, but made himself strange to them, and spoke roughly to them. And he said to them, From where come you? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brothers, but they knew not him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said to them, You are spies, to see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said to him, No, my lord, but to buy food are your servants come. We are all one man's sons, we are true men, your servants are no spies. And he said to them, No, but to see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said, Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And, behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said to them, That is it that I spoke to you, saying, You are spies. Hereby you shall be proved, by the life of Pharaoh you shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come here. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh surely you are spies. And he put them all together into ward 3 days. And Joseph said to them the 3rd day, This do, and live, for I fear God. If you be true men, let one of your brothers be bound in the house of your prison. Go you, carry corn for the famine of your houses. But bring your youngest brother to me, so shall your words be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, We are truly guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul, when he sought us, and we would not hear, therefore is this distress come on us. And Reuben answered them, saying, Spoke I not to you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and you would not hear? Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them, and wept, and returned to them again, and communed with them, and took from them Simeon, and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way, and thus did he to them. And they laded their asses with the corn, and departed there. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provender in the inn, he espied his money, for, behold, it was in his sack mouth. And he said to his brothers, My money is restored, and, see, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, What is this that God has done to us? And they came to Jacob their father to the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell to them, saying, The man, who is the Lord of the land, spoke roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said to him, We are true men, we are no spies. We be 12 brothers, sons of our father, one is not, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said to us, Hereby shall I know that you are true men, leave one of your brothers here with me, and take food for the famine of your households, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother to me, then shall I know that you are no spies, but that you are true men, so will I deliver you your brother, and you shall traffic in the land. And it came to pass as they emptied their sacks, that, behold, every man bundle of money was in his sack, and when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, Me have you bereaved of my children, Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and you will take Benjamin away, all these things are against me. And Reuben spoke to his father, saying, Slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to you, deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to you again. And he said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in the which you go, then shall you bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Genesis 43. And the famine was sore in the land. And it came to pass, when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said to them, Go again, buy us a little food. And Judah spoke to him, saying, The man did solemnly protest to us, saying, You shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down, for the man said to us, You shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. And Israel said, Why dealt you so ill with me, as to tell the man whether you had yet a brother? And they said, The man asked us straitly of our state, and of our kindred, saying, Is your father yet alive? Have you another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, Bring your brother down? And Judah said to Israel his father, Send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live, and not die, both we, and you, and also our little ones. I will be surety for him, of my hand shall you require him, if I bring him not to you, and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we had returned this second time. And their father Israel said to them, If it must be so now, do this, take of the best fruits in the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm, and a little honey, spices, and myrrh, nuts, and almonds. And take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your sacks, carry it again in your hand, peradventure it was an oversight. Take also your brother, and arise, go again to the man. And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your other brother, and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. And the men took that present, and they took double money in their hand and Benjamin, and rose up, and went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house, Bring these men home, and slay, and make ready, for these men shall dine with me at noon. And the man did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. And the men were afraid, because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, Because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time are we brought in, that he may seek occasion against us, and fall on us, and take us for slaves, and our asses. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house, and said, O sir, we came indeed down at the first time to buy food. And it came to pass, when we came to the inn, that we opened our sacks, and, behold, every man money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight, and we have brought it again in our hand. And other money have we brought down in our hands to buy food, we cannot tell who put our money in our sacks. And he said, Peace be to you, fear not, your God, and the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks, I had your money. And he brought Simeon out to them. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house, and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their asses provender. And they made ready the present against Joseph came at noon, for they heard that they should eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth. And he asked them of their welfare, and said, Is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? Is he yet alive? And they answered, Your servant our father is in good health, he is yet alive. And they bowed down their heads, and made obeisance. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, Is this your younger brother, of whom you spoke to me? And he said, God be gracious to you, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn on his brother, and he sought where to weep, and he entered into his chamber, and wept there. And he washed his face, and went out, and refrained himself, and said, Set on bread. And they set on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians, which did eat with him, by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth, and the men marveled one at another. And he took and sent messes to them from before him, but Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of their. And they drank, and were merry with him. Genesis 44. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, Fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man money in his sack mouth. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack mouth of the youngest, and his corn money. And he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their asses. And when they were gone out of the city, and not yet far off, Joseph said to his steward, Up, follow after the men, and when you do overtake them, say to them, Why have you rewarded evil for good? Is not this it in which my Lord drinks, and whereby indeed he divines? You have done evil in so doing. And he overtook them, and he spoke to them these same words. And they said to him, Why said my Lord these words? God forbid that your servants should do according to this thing. Behold, the money, which we found in our sacks' mouths, we brought again to you out of the land of Canaan. How then should we steal out of your Lord's house silver or gold? With whomsoever of your servants it be found, both let him die, and we also will be my Lord's slaves. And he said, Now also let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found shall be my servant, and you shall be blameless. Then they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, and opened every man his sack. And he searched, and began at the oldest, and left at the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they rent their clothes, and laded every man his ass, and returned to the city. And Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said to them, What deed is this that you have done? Know you not that such a man as I can certainly divine? And Judah said, What shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of your servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we, and he also with whom the cup is found. And he said, God forbid that I should do so, but the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant, and as for you, get you up in peace to your father. Then Judah came near to him, and said, O my lord, let your servant, I pray you, speak a word in my lord's ears, and let not your anger burn against your servant, for you are even as Pharaoh. My lord asked his servants, saying, Have you a father, or a brother? And we said to my lord, We have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loves him. And you said to your servants, Bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him. And we said to my lord, The lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. And you said to your servants, Except your youngest brother come down with you, you shall see my face no more. And it came to pass when we came up to your servant my father, we told him the words of my lord. And our father said, Go again, and buy us a little food. And we said, We cannot go down, if our youngest brother be with us, then will we go down, for we may not see the man face, except our youngest brother be with us. And your servant my father said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. And the one went out from me, and I said, Surely he is torn in pieces, and I saw him not since. And if you take this also from me, and mischief befall him, you shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Now therefore when I come to your servant my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad life. It shall come to pass, when he sees that the lad is not with us, that he will die, and your servants shall bring down the gray hairs of your servant our father with sorrow to the grave. For your servant became surety for the lad to my father, saying, If I bring him not to you, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore, I pray you, let your servant abide instead of the lad a slave to my lord, and let the lad go up with his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me? Lest peradventure I see the evil that shall come on my father. Genesis 45. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, Cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, does my father yet live? And his brothers could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said to his brothers, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near. And he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that you sold me here, for God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years has the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years, in the which there shall neither be ripening nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me here, but God, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Haste you, and go up to my father, and say to him, Thus said your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt, come down to me, tarry not. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near to me, you, and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks, and your herds, and all that you have. And there will I nourish you, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest you, and your household, and all that you have, come to poverty. And, behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that speaks to you. And you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that you have seen, and you shall haste and bring down my father here. And he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck, and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. Moreover he kissed all his brothers, and wept on them, and after that his brothers talked with him. And the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers are come, and it pleased Pharaoh well, and his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Say to your brothers, This do you, lade your beasts, and go, get you to the land of Canaan. And take your father and your households, and come to me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land. Now you are commanded, This do you, take you wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones, and for your wives, and bring your father, and come. Also regard not your stuff, for the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. And the children of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons, according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. To all of them he gave each man changes of raiment, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver, and 5 changes of raiment. And to his father he sent after this manner, 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. So he sent his brothers away, and they departed, and he said to them, See that you fall not out by the way. And they went up out of Egypt, and came into the land of Canaan to Jacob their father, and told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. And they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said to them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Israel said, It is enough, Joseph my son is yet alive, I will go and see him before I die. Enjoyed the video? Leave a like, comment, and share. Let's spread the word of God.